What is this, man? No sound, no hair. How can I tell he's on a podcast with me? Oh, so much fun. Obviously, this is the perfect gig, yeah? I get to take his happiness. He can't even respond. It's almost like I'm married to him. Yeah? Not that he's getting any sex in his marriage anyway, but do we even need him for this podcast? What hosting part? I'm doing the roasting part.
As you can see, I love talking to myself in this front of this camera. And welcome to the Green Room podcast. My name is Adnan Nalwala, and I have an amazing person with me today. I think he's probably one of the pioneers of English comedy from India. He's done several shows all over. He's written a book called Naked, and he's even taken that show all the way to Broadway. One of the leading comedians from India, a good friend of mine, and someone who I truly enjoy a lot. Please give it up for the one and only papacj.
Hey, man, what's up?
Oh, what's up, bro? How you doing, man?
I should introduce you as well, yeah? Since you've gone with
fine.
all these fancy words. And
you can simply say the comedian with the best hairstyle in the industry, and just let's stick to that.
I was gonna say the most sensitive lover I've ever had, but okay, we'll go with the hairstyle thing then.
All right, bro. Listen, man. CJ, what I want to do is I've got a bunch of questions for you, okay? And I want you to be as candid as possible and as transparent as possible. So some of these things I didn't share with you because I wanted your natural thought process to flow. Is that cool?
Yeah, sure, man.
Okay. So first things first, let's get down to, your book, Naked.
Yeah.
What inspired you to write this book, man? How did it all come about?
I had almost zero inspiration to write this book. So I used to tour a show called Naked, and a publisher came, watched the show, and said, "Listen, this story is really powerful. We would love for it to be a book. Can you do this book with us?" Now, my gut instinct, as somebody who's always enjoyed selling, was, "Oh, look, one publisher likes this book. Maybe somebody else will." So eventually, I spoke to a few. I got offers from 5 different publishers, and the second one person gave me an offer. I used to go to somebody else and say, look what they offered me. And then they would raise their offer. And then I would go back to the other one saying, look. So I kind of played this game for a little while. And eventually I had a book contract sitting on my table, but that sat on my table for 2 years. I didn't sign it because...
Why?
Because I'm a comedian, and as you know, comedians are obliged to be lazy fuckers. We did not leave the corporate world and become comedians so we could work 6 days a week, right?
So you procrastinated for 2 years, huh?
Well, my logic was this. Why does anybody write a book, right? Either you're writing it for the money. Now, if you've ever written a book, you will know that there is no money in writing books. Or you're doing it because there's a story inside you that you're dying to tell.
Right.
But I was already telling this story on stage. And when you tell a story on stage, you will know this as a comedian. It's instant gratification. You tell the story, people clap, people cheer, people laugh.
That's
boom,
true.
You're done.
Yeah.
Why the hell would I spend 6 months writing a book? But then eventually I kind of did it purely for the ego trip, right?
That is extremely candid. Wow.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, come on. Let's be honest. Yeah, we guys get on stage, we crack cheap jokes with bottom of the barrel sexual innuendo, right? But I thought, if I have the name author next to my, title author next to my name, people might think, ooh, like this guy reads, he wears glasses, maybe he's intelligent. So I thought, let's do it, man.
But CJ, tell me, I want to ask you something else, right? This is informative for me as well. The whole process of writing a book, right? What do you think tell me some points that were fun and some points that were really painful.
Okay, so I'll tell you the whole story, but I will, jokes apart, I'll tell you why the book was a good thing to do. Because you will know this with stand-up, most of our gigs are in bars, or in places where people are drinking alcohol and tend to have a lower attention span, unless you're doing a theater show.
Which you've done several, by the way.
So as a comedian, you are obliged to try and get to the punchline as soon as possible. You want to get there.
Right.
But the medium of print allows you the luxury of telling longer stories, of adding a few layers, and it allows you to give the audience slash the reader a slightly different or even richer experiences in some ways. So the book has 5 times the content that the show does, and it gives the reader a different experience. So people who've seen the book, who've read the book and seen the show, will tell you that, oh, the stories are similar, but they're two completely different experiences. And when you sort of experience one, you can still enjoy the other in spite of knowing elements of the story.
So tell me, what did you enjoy in the book and what you did enjoy, the part of writing the book? Specifics.
The bit that I didn't enjoy is I'm lazy by nature, so I don't like to work. But I'll tell you So I'll tell you the entire process. The first draft was done in 1 week, right? Because the book is based on the show. The show is the story of my life. I kind of know my life. So I pulled together the entire book exactly like I do a stand-up comedy routine. I had posted notes with different anecdotes on it. The ones that sort of made sense together, I put them, in one sort of grouping. Each of those became a chapter. I organized them in some order, like I would do a comedy routine, which was logical. I put a nice little start at the beginning and a nice little end at the beginning. Then I created segues between the chapters, and boom, done. Exactly like you would pull together a comedy show, a 1-hour comedy show, where you have jokes, which turn into routines, which sort of go one after the other in a logical flow, and you're done. Nice little beginning, nice little end. As they say with an Edinburgh show, 40 minutes in, somebody's supposed to die, or, something drastic. Every 20 minutes you change something. And in 1 week's time, or 10 days tops, I gave it to my editor. I was like, here, here's the book. And she went through it, and she said, कि तुम्हारे किताब में दर्द नहीं है. Right. So I'll translate that for anybody who doesn't speak Hindi, that there's not enough pain in your book. I say, in your life that you have described.
So you should have said, I felt plenty of it while writing it, though.
That's exactly what I said. I said the biggest pain in my life is writing this damn book. So anyway, she said, go and, do some more work on it. So I went away, I did nothing. For 6 months, I did nothing. I forgot about it. 6 months later, she calls me saying, hey, CJ, so how's the book going? I said, I've been working on it. And it's almost ready for me to send back to you. So again, then I worked on it for 1 week, put some pain inside it. And I went to her and said, kitab mein dard hai. There is pain in this book now. So she read it, and then she gave me some feedback. Then I think the greatest change happened when I was coming to Dubai and this was again 4 or 5 months after that, I did nothing. I was coming to Dubai for an event, and my childhood friend Chetan was coming as well. So I told him, listen, just here's the manuscript, just go through it and see what you think. So he read it on the flight. And when he came to Dubai, he said, CJ, you're a comedian, but this is a book about your life, and your life is not a joke. So I want you to write the kind of book that my daughters would be inspired by. Don't be frivolous. And I thought, oh, that's a lot of pressure. So then I sort of looked at it slightly differently. And then I remember in June 2019, I had a friend of mine was going to London, and her company had booked this fancy hotel. She said, you want to come? There's accommodations on the house. So I said, great, I'll come. I will lock myself in that room for an entire week. I will not step out, and I will finish this book. And it was beautiful because I sat in that room. I did not step out. All day I worked on the book, and it was like one of those Matrix Minority Report films, the Tom Cruise Minority Report, where he just sees all this stuff in the air and it's all falling into place.
Yeah.
The whole book just fell into place in this imaginary wall in front of me. And I started finishing it off, and I had 1 day's work left. That morning, when I was going to do that last 1 day's work, my last day in London, I had breakfast with Vikram Sathe, who's another comedian friend of mine, in that hotel. And he had 2 tickets for the India-Australia World Cup match at the Oval.
Oh, wow. So exactly. You picked that.
And I was like, I know this book is really important. I know it's all there. But when do you get 2 tickets to the India-Australia match? So I was like, I'm going to go for this match. Went for the match. Amazing. And I thought, okay, you know what? Even though I was in the zone, it's all falling into place. I'm going to go back to India. I'm going to finish it. I get back to India, land in India. But the very next day, I'm going for a motorcycle expedition with my father. We're going to Kashmir, and we're going to drive from Srinagar, Kargil, Leh, Nubra Valley, that whole the famous route. So next day, go to Kashmir, uh, get on this bike ride for 3 days, ride over Khardungla Pass, highest motorable road in the world, go through a snowstorm, and then I have an accident and I break my leg into two pieces, like it literally snapped.
Oh man!
And that was me. That was me out of commission for the next 4 months because I was in no state to be able to write that last 1 day's piece of work. But eventually, I got down. I finished that 1 day's piece of work, and then what I wanted to do, Adnan, was to go through the entire manuscript with the lens of a comedian. I had one step left, which is I'm going to go through the whole thing and look for places where I can stick gags in,
Right, some punches, yeah.
Just gag it up. But then my editor was like, we're really late on the deadline. You should really get this book out. So I said, you know what? I was kind of done with it. I said, you know what? Just take it, So I didn't do that last bit. But in some ways, I think it's good that I didn't do that because it would have taken away from the narrative. You know how it is when sometimes you're off stage and there's a bunch of comics hanging out. We're just chatting and having a regular conversation. And there is somebody who's just trying to throw in a punchline everywhere, just trying to be funny all the time.
Yeah. And the natural element gets killed then, man. Exactly.
Right. And you're like, dude, like chill. It's just us guys having a chat. You don't have to
be funny,
try and be funny all the time. So I think in many ways it's good I didn't do that because it would have felt like it was force fitted in, The narrative itself is funny enough. It's based on a comedy show. So I think the upside of the book is because it's based on the show, it's punchy enough. It's got all those gags in, but it still has the depth that the medium of print allows you.
Fair enough.
But yeah, but yeah, I just want to jump in and say that I'm not a very well-read comedian. I have written more books than I have read, and I have written one book. I have written one book. So
I just got that.
This is what happens. I'm amazed. You don't have the hair. Nothing is blocking it from getting into your brain. And
okay, so CJ, here's how it's going to go, bro. I have a lot of questions for you, and I think I want you to just cover the essence as much as possible. Otherwise, I won't get through all the questions I want. And I've now understood what you're saying in terms of your book. I want to go a little bit more deeper into your book. Okay, why naked?
Why naked?
Why naked?
Well, the ethos behind both the book.
Why the word naked? Let me be honest. Okay, so why did you choose the word naked?
So here's the thing, right? Adnan is the kind of interviewer who comes to an interview without having done any research, because he's a comedian.
I know exactly what it's about. It's about your life and how you strip. I even know about your show. You actually strip off your clothes.
But you haven't read the book and you haven't seen the show, because if you had, you wouldn't have asked the question. I'm kidding. I'm messing with you, man.
I know what I'm saying, but this is for the audience, buddy. Play along.
I'm heckling you. But when we're done with this, I want to find out more about your game as well, because I believe you've created a game called Spill It, which is supposed to be really cool. So
thank you. Yeah, we will get to that. But let's finish with naked. Tell me why naked.
I'll tell you why, because with the comedy special and with the book, the ethos behind Naked is that as human beings, we build walls around ourselves, which hide our deepest hopes and fears and desires.
Yes.
And over the course of this show and the book, one layer at a time, I'm removing those walls and I'm exposing myself with all my vulnerability, all my pain. And it is terrifying yet exhilarating at the same time. But at the end of it, while you are completely naked, metaphorically, you're also completely free. So that is, when people read the book or watch the show, the question that does come to their mind, exactly like you asked, is why naked? And when they get to the end and they're like, now I get it,
Fair enough. So, I believe that, in your life, you've actually been held at gunpoint in South Africa. And you mentioned about this issue in the book.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about that, man? I mean, look, that's just maddening when I read that. Okay, I just want to know, like, what happened? Why did that happen? How did you handle that situation?
I'll give you.
That's scarier than getting on stage with the mic on, by the way, for me at least.
So this is 2007. I was invited to headline a comedy festival in South Africa.
Okay.
And I had been doing comedy for 2.5 years. So it was a big deal, man. Headlining a comedy festival, international. I was based in London at this point. And
I've been doing it for 10 years and I still don't get called. So I get it. It's a big deal.
No comment.
Go ahead.
So now normally the money always comes in advance. That's how our contracts work.
Right.
So the money hadn't come, and I called this guy. I said, "Dude, what's the scene? The money hasn't come." And he says, "No, it's coming. We're transferring it. It'll happen. We'll give it to you when you come here just before the show." So it didn't sound all okay, but it was a big deal. Yeah, a big international festival. You're headlining. I said, "Chalo, let's go."
Right.
So I get on a flight there. Then they were one act short. So I called my friend Vidur Kapoor from New York. Wonderful chap. A gay comic, originally from Delhi, lives in the US. I said, "Come with it. Why don't you come? We'll do this together." So we land in Joburg. From Joburg, they drive us out of Joburg to some dodgy suburb. They take us to this flat. We're not staying in a hotel. We get into this flat. We go into this room. We're sharing a room, 2 separate beds. Everything in the room is pink. Everything. Like the bed sheets, the bed covers, the curtains, the paint. I was like, okay, fine. So I said, the show was the next day. So I said, "Dude, where's our money?" And he said, no, I'll bring it to you tomorrow. I said, "Fine, no problem." So the next day, these guys come to pick us up for the show. And now keep it. So I said, "Where's the cash?" So he said, no, I'll give it to you later. I said, "Listen, a deal is a deal. This is what we agreed. Just bring us the money and we'll go after." So he said, no, I'll do it tomorrow. I said, "Well, in that case, I'm not coming." He pulls out a revolver from his jacket pocket and he says, "No, you are coming." Now, luckily, Vidur had not seen.
I have to ask, was this an Indian guy?
Yeah. So,
wow.
So luckily, Vidur had not seen this. Okay, otherwise he would have freaked out and run away. So anyway, so we get to this place. He takes us to this mall, and I'm thinking, okay, there's going to be theater inside this mall. So we go into the mall, and then we go into the basement. Okay, we go to the basement. There is an underground parking lot, right, where there is a makeshift stage. There are 500 people on plastic chairs. It's cold, so they've got their own blankets. It's a very dodgy, shady scene. Okay,
but 500 people in a parking lot.
Wow. 500 people in an underground parking lot of a mall. Okay, so
we get things to do in South Africa.
So this gig is happening, and there's 500 people in front, and there's one guy at the back with a gun in his hand. So anyway, so we finished this gig. Then after that, we're supposed to do Cape Town, and then we're supposed to do Durban. Now, Durban was hometown for these promoters. We had gigs at the Sibaya Casino, which is a nice place, 1,000 seaters, sold out 2 nights back to back. But Cape Town, they hadn't promoted the shows very well. So the Cape Town gigs get cancelled. We get to Joburg Airport, and these guys are trying to convince Vidur to come straight to Durban. And I'm at the airport. I haven't told him about this whole gun situation. I said, "No, Vidur, just come to Cape Town with me. Trust me." Right. So we said, "No, we're gonna go to Cape Town. It was promised we're going to Cape Town. We want to see the place. We've never been in South Africa." So we go to Cape Town. I stay with, we end up staying with the girlfriend of another comic, a London-based comic at that time, Martin. So we stay with her. And now from Cape Town, I call these guys. Right now, we've got 1,000 seaters that are sold out. And I said, "Listen, if you don't send us the money, we are not coming." Right? Luckily, these guys did not know where we were staying in Cape Town because, I just went to a friend's house and stayed there. So then they sent us some money, a little bit, enough for me to get Vidur paid because, he came on my account. I didn't want to.
Right.
So I could settle sort of his dues. Now, then I knew that the rest of the money was never going to come. I also knew that I'm dealing with a bunch of guys who carry guns and threaten you. But 1,000-seaters, you're a new comic. It's a 1,000-seater auditorium. It's sold out, right? It's an international tour. I know the press is going to cover it. I know they've already done some media around it. So my logic is they're not going to shoot me before the gig, right? So I'm like, screw this, let's go. So we go to Durban. We're staying at a half decent place. I think it was called Sun City. No, Sun City Casino was Joburg. We're staying at a decent place. I remember we went out to this nightclub called Cafe Wackamata, which is fun. We do the first gig, really good, super show. The second gig, now I don't know what's going to happen afterwards. So I have booked a taxi for myself that is standing backstage waiting for me, right? I headline the second gig. I finish it straight from backstage. I have gone to this taxi. I haven't even come out, gone straight into the taxi. My luggage is there. It has taken me to the airport. I have booked the first flight with my own money that I could get and flown straight out of the country.
Did you hear from those guys again?
No.
Do you want to hear from them again?
Well, if they're calling about the 22,000 Rand that they owe me, then yeah, sure.
Insane. So, CJ, I want to shift a little bit away from just the book. Now, I want to understand also, a few things about yourself. Look, I personally really admire that you also do consultancy to corporates and, you give advice. Just tell us, how do you do this? Or rather, what do you do? What kind of consultancy do you provide? Like, what does a comedian have to provide to a corporate?
Oh, a lot. Firstly, my background is I completed a master's in business degree from Oxford University.
From an ordinary university called Oxford, I believe. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, some sidey place. Yeah. I mean, I really wanted to go to lovely professional university, but I didn't get admission. So I had to go to my second choice, which was Oxford.
Oxford, fair enough.
And then I did some consulting in London for about 3 or 4 years. Then I started stand-up, did about 700 gigs in the UK before moving back to India. And I think, so I enjoy both sides of it. I enjoy the business bit and I enjoy the stand-up. I enjoy the comedy as well. But in terms of what a comedian can bring to the table, I think it's a hell of a lot, because I run a course which is called A Comedian's Guide to Communication Strategy. If you think about it, today as a comedian, I'm a brand, right? I have to get my message out to audiences / markets in multiple different countries. My point of view remains the same, except how I communicate it in different places differs. In an age of limited attention spans, I've got to grab attention immediately, bring people over to my point of view, right?
So you teach all of these things in your course.
So what I do in the course is I first talk about how we do it as comedians. And then I make those corporate guys put on that lens and look at their business. So for example, today as an established comedian, you don't have the freedom to screw up, right? When you get on a big,
powerful. That's true.
When you get on a big stage, you will, you don't have the freedom to screw up. Oh,
have you screwed up? Have you?
Of course. Right. Look at me. I'm here doing a podcast with you. Do you think my life is successful? If I was successful, would I be doing this, talking to Adnan Nalwala?
That's fair enough. You were saying.
So we don't have the freedom to screw up, right? But if you don't want to screw up, you want to succeed all the time, you will always play safe. You will not take risks. You will not innovate. And if you don't do that, you will stagnate. So what do? You go to an open mic night. You go unannounced to a small show with 50 people in the room. You experiment, you try out different things, you see what works, you see what doesn't, you innovate. And then the stuff that does work, you take that on stage to the bigger shows, to the corporate gigs. So my question to somebody working in an organization or a senior executive is, where is your open mic night? Where do you go to, right? Where do you go to experiment? Where do you go to make mistakes? What are the risks that you would like to take?
That's
so I asked
extremely important. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I will put them in small groups to actually discuss this. What are the experiments we can take? What are the risks we want to do? What is the innovative stuff we want to try? Where are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? With
CJ, I'm
which
going to
product?
steal
With
this,
which market?
by the way. I
You
want to
can't.
totally steal this.
You can't.
You can't stop me, because honestly, I do comedy as a passion,
Yeah.
and but I'm actually a businessman, and I'm going to talk to my team. So I won't sell it, but I'm saying I'm going to completely apply the strategy. This makes a lot of sense. Genuinely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just
You
make
got to
sure.
learn it. Yeah.
Just make sure you quote me saying.
For sure.
Fine.
I'll give you that.
So
at gunpoint.
So this is just one example of
Wow.
the many things that go in that course.
And your course is generally how long? Is it a week long, an hour? Like it is a day session?
So it entirely depends. Yeah. So most of my stuff tends to be with senior leaders who don't have a lot of time.
Right.
So I tend to see, if I was doing it as a lecture, I could do it within an hour, but nobody wants that. I would rather do a half-day session, because see, I could ask this question saying, where is your open mic night? And just move on to the next bit. But the real value is, because senior leaders don't have time. Now I've got you in that room. You've actually got the time to think about these things, is to put them in the groups, make them talk about these things. So by the end of the 3-hour session, they have a marketing strategy, a content strategy. They have something written down on paper where they can immediately go out and apply. That is the value. It's not a theoretical session. So
CJ,
I would.
Sorry,
Yes.
I interrupted, but I want to ask you, do people push you more about how they literally communicate? Like, what should I say? My gestures, my voice, my jokes. So they actually ask you, what should be the thought process? What do they expect from you?
See, a bit of both, and one can help with both. So a lot of CEOs, for example, contact me to get me to help them with their presentations or with their speeches.
Right.
And
right.
often they're contacting me and saying, listen, can you help us, make this funnier or more humorous? And what they're surprised by is that actually my greater value add is in the structuring, right? Because today as comedians, we know what it takes to engage an audience. What goes first? What goes second? Have you got the dopamine hits along the way? Have you removed the extra words that you don't need? There's so much fat that they throw in, which is just, they're just rambling. It's just, you don't need all of that stuff. So a lot of what I end up doing is actually tightening that piece of communication, ensuring that it's got some logical sense in a way that engages people and takes them down a journey. And most importantly, right at the end, see the two questions, and I know you're going to steal this as well for your consulting. Any presentation, any talk, there are two main questions you need to be able to answer. The first one is, what do you want your audience to think, feel, or do as a result of this piece of communication? And secondly, why should they give a crap? Why should that guy be interested in what? Why should that guy be interested in what you have to say? Nobody gives a damn about your opinion. Agreed. What they care about is what's in it for them. And unless you make that clear at the top, they're not going to stay with you till the end. So a lot of what I'm doing for them is not so much comedy related, but I'm using the skills that we acquire as comedians and helping them apply that to their business context.
That's awesome, man. CJ, listen, so you know what, in interest of time, I've done something. I want to now put you in the spot. I want to behave like you're on the Coffee with Karan show, and I want to ask you questions that are going to be rapid fire. Okay.
Well, if it's Coffee with Karan, I'm guessing it's mostly sexual.
No, it's not. But so part of this is also, questions which I create based on the person I'm with, and this is my game Spill It, which I'll also, test you with some questions. Yeah, we'll test, but this is not the Spill It part. This is more about just how people do understand Papa CJ. So this is, your rapid fire. Please, without thinking, answer, and try to keep these sentence answers as short as possible. Okay. First one. What makes a good comedian?
What makes a good? There is no answer to that question, Adnan.
Really?
There is no.
But
I'm really sorry. But
from your perspective, from Papa CJ's perspective, there's no right or wrong. What makes? I'm
sorry. Exactly. You've just answered it. There is no right or wrong. It's different for different people. I think as long as you just, there is no right answer to that question. There is no one answer to that question.
Okay, moving on to the next one.
Okay, authenticity.
I'll take that. I agree
Yeah.
with you.
Authenticity. Just somebody who's being themselves, and that is different for different people. So yeah.
Excellent. Okay, here's your second question. What's the difference between a brand and talent?
Between a brand and talent. Well, the advice I often give people is it's important to learn the trade before you learn the tricks of the trade. So with social media today, it's very easy, or not very easy, but it's very possible for you to become a brand before you acquire the talent. So you can put a 5-minute video on the internet that will get you 10 million views, and then you can sell out a massive, and you can and you can sell out a massive theater. But once those 1,000 people come into that theater, unless you have the talent, you're not going to be able to hold their attention for an hour.
I agree with that.
So
Okay, now,
a brand can be built quickly. Talent takes time to acquire because you have to work at it.
okay, without thinking, in top 5 comedians currently in India.
I am not qualified to answer that question because I haven't. One, I hardly watch comedy online. I mostly watch sport.
And the diplomacy award goes to papacj.
No, genuinely. And secondly, I don't get to see the work of many comedians live, because in the last 10 years, almost every single show that I've done is a solo show. Most of my work tends to be corporate. And so I unfortunately don't have the opportunity.
But from what you've seen and heard through the circuit, who do you think are like the top 5, according to you? And the second preference.
Seen and heard, I mean, I can't tell you. Because it's not, I don't think it's fair to judge somebody based on what somebody...
I'm going to have a conversation with you after the podcast. That was the most politically correct question I've ever heard.
if you ask me about the UK, I can tell you about the UK because I've done 700 gigs there with maybe 1,000 different comedians.
Right? Totally fair. Okay.
Also, may I just say that there are different qualities that you admire in different comedians, right? True. So, for example, Jason Byrne. Jason Byrne can get on stage and do 20 minutes about the curtains, and Andrew Maxwell is superbly well read. Stephen K. Amos, pure charisma. Steve Hughes, he can split a room. You either love him or you hate him, but the sharpness of his point of view, so I think there are different things that you pick up from different people and that you admire. And it's not necessarily one. Sorry, I'm rambling. I'm not very good at this whole rapid fire.
I was going to say, that's fine. Something you wish you could change in your life.
I don't believe in that concept at all. I think are you talking about regret, looking back?
Yeah, anything. It doesn't have to be dark. It just could be anything you wish you could change in your life.
I would love to be more disciplined if that was possible.
Wow. Okay.
But it's not really a character trait.
Okay, fair enough. Best rumor about you?
Oh, that I last 3 hours in bed. I mean, what's wrong with these people? Yeah, how can they cut it down by 50% and spread that word?
The best thing someone has said about your book?
Best thing someone has said. I can't think of a specific thing. I mean, you can look at the reviews on Amazon, but people seem to have enjoyed it. Because I think
something that stuck to you, it's like a big deal, man. Something that stuck to your heart, like you enjoyed once. If you can't remember the person, that's also fine. But the words that you enjoyed.
I can tell you things that people have said about my stand-up. I remember an 86-year-old.
I want to come to that as well. Don't change the question. Best thing someone said about your book?
I don't know. I don't really remember.
Okay, fine.
I mean, people have liked it. Yeah.
Okay, now here's your stand-up question. Worst thing someone has said about your stand-up?
Worst thing someone has said about my stand-up. I think the worst thing is when they don't say anything at all.
Yeah, exactly.
When you perform to silence, which has happened.
Crickets, right? Good. Oh shit, that didn't land. Okay, one thing you wish you had said on stage.
I say what I want to say, man. You've worked with me, you know that. I don't hold back.
Really? Anything that you wish you could?
No. I mean, if there's anything I want to say, I say it.
Yeah. All right. So this is the lead-up question to that. What's your take on political jokes in India?
What's my take on political jokes in India? See, I'm not a very, me personally, I'm not a very political comic. One, for two reasons. I think one of them is I'm not deeply interested in politics, but I think more importantly, I'm far too lazy to be a political comedian, because in order to be a political comedian, you need to be well informed enough to be able to talk about those things. And I couldn't be bothered to put in the work. So for me, a lot of it is a lot of the stuff I do. So Naked is about my life, Unbroken is about my accident. It's personal stuff because that's just my area of interest. In terms of politics, there's a lot of guys who do it well. Yeah, if you look at Varun Grover, for example, he's fabulous. And I think with political comedy, there are risks involved. And I think anywhere, because unfortunately, we no longer live in a world where people can agree to disagree. I've seen people who have lifelong relationships that are now hampered because they have different political points of view.
I agree. I've seen that as well.
And that's sorry to see. But also, this is, I could take an hour to answer this question.
I know. So let's I'm going to end scene. But just so your take is you don't have an opinion, but do you think the question, what I was trying to get at is, do you think this is an area which should be continued or discontinued? Do you think it's something that we Indians are ready for, political comedy?
Oh, everybody's ready for it, but to each their own. See, here's the thing. When you do, you can go on till kingdom come, talking about how things should be, right? That, it's just a joke. If I do this, people should not get upset. They should not attack me. They should not file an FIR. That's a theoretical discussion, right? The reality is, depending on what you say, there are people who will get upset and may choose to be violent against you, right? It's not just in India, it's in other places as well, right? If you look at Charlie Hebdo, for example, you can go on till kingdom come talking about whether it should have happened. Is it right? Is it not? The fact is, you can't claim to be surprised that it actually happened. So today, as a performer, when you perform, you need to ask yourself, what is more important to you? Is me making that point more important to me? Or is my personal safety more important to me? Right? And also, there are some comedians who, for them, expressing a point of view is more important. So, for example, if I'm in a room and see, luckily, I don't get into a lot of trouble because I hardly do any public shows, right? Most of my stuff is closed doors. And also, people get into trouble when things get on the internet or things get on television. When you come for a live show, you understand the persona of the performer, you understand the intent, you understand the context. So, in general, people don't get offended. If that same thing was stuck on the internet, people who were not in that room will watch that, and then things may get taken out of context. I have actually lost my train of thought.
No, but
with regard to what you're doing, also as a comedian today. So, for example, if there is, say, 100 people in front of me, and I know certain topics might upset them, there are some comedians who will say, this is what I do. I'm going to do it. It's my point of view. It's my voice. But for me, the way I see it is, I want the guys who've come in to have a good time. I'm not going to change my point of view. But so, for example, if there's somebody in their 80s in the front row, I will not pick on them because that is my value system. So I think you've got to take a call based on what your value system is and what the reality of the world is, and take that call. I think there's a comedian I was reading yesterday who's done a comedy special, but a lot of the bits have been pulled out of that because he felt that now is not a time when you can do that stuff. And he said, I'll do a live show where those edited out bits, you can come and watch. Anyway,
CJ, you went long. There were at least 3 more questions, and I'm going to conclude this too. And I want quick answers on this, just quick. Okay. Last 2 questions. And here's what it is. Rate in terms of skills, right? Between these 3 categories, a stand-up comedian, an improviser, and a sketch comedian. What do you think is, in terms of skills, the hardest?
Adnan, again, I'm not qualified to answer this question. I know how to do stand-up. And I think it's a phenomenally difficult thing to do. but you get better over time. I haven't done sketch, I haven't done improv, so I'm not qualified to answer that question.
Dude, you are the most diplomatic guy I've ever seen. Okay, last question for you. This you can answer. This is all about you. Do you think people like Papa CJ or Papa CJ's jokes?
My preference would be for them to like Papa CJ.
But what do you think it is?
You tell me, dude. You've met me. You've seen my jokes. What do you prefer?
It's not what Adnan thinks. The question is what you think. Okay,
you asked me.
The idea is to understand CJ, not Adnan.
You asked me what people think. You are people. I'm asking you, what do you think?
Why are you returning the question? If you ask me whether people like Adnan or Adnan's jokes, I can answer that. I don't know Adnan, what people cannot be.
Adnan,
I'm not the one.
Adnan, you've worked with me.
We'll come back. We'll come back to that. We'll come back.
You've
to
been
that
on
when you
stage. You've been on stage with me. Do you like me better? Do you like my jokes better?
I'm not. I can obviously. I like you. Obviously, listen, I like your jokes.
Adnan, they have to like me better, and they have to hate me better because I don't have any jokes. I only do crowd work. You've seen that. So boom.
All right, last one. So this is what we're going to end on this, CJ. I think we've kind of hit the timeline. Just so that I can get my bit of game in also. I wanted to talk about Spill It, right? And this is what Spill It does. Spill It basically is a card game which you can get to know someone's personality and just see how they think. There's no right or wrong answer. And I've literally pulled out, this is what it looks like. And
nice.
This is one of the questions. It's one of my favorite questions, by the way, and it stirs up an entire room, right?
Okay.
And see if you can answer this in 30 seconds. I'm giving you a timeline as well. Who has it easier in today's world, a man or a woman?
A man, always.
Always? Why?
Yeah. Because society is biased in favor of men all over the world, in any country, no matter how advanced it is. And I say this based on, again, I'm not qualified to answer this question because I don't know what it's like to be in a woman's shoes. But by and large, the world is still biased in favor of men.
Fair enough. Really appreciate it. Listen, CJ, it was awesome talking to you. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. Green Room Chats, I think we're done. Entertainment Factory, thank you very much for having me as your host. We got to reverse this, man. We got to have someone else also come in. I want CJ to ask me all these difficult questions and hopefully I'll make him smile as well. Thank you very much. I've enjoyed this. CJ, take care of yourself. Appreciate your time.
Cheers, bro. All the very best.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks.